the rules.
You
They're
were
doing everything.
describing a victimhood mentality.
No, I'm
Scott.
describing people
You're
who get up and
literally
go to
doing
work.
that.
Well, if you want to describe working class America that follows the laws and pay their taxes as victims, go ahead. But
Well,
that's not
I'm
how
just saying.
conservatives.
No.
But I think
But hold on. But you're
saying
saying that. Look, everybody is doing everything right? But other people are putting something on.
Yeah,
them
like
that's
illegal
causing them
immigrants
to
who
not
come
do well.
here and take up public resources.
look,
they're not doing things right, but. The left, and you would argue that it's okay to leave them here, and the working class of this country would say, no, they broke the rules. They broke the rules, and I didn't, and yet they get more than I do.
Yeah, but
it's a good question.
Hold on, but Scott, not all of the problems in this country are the responsibility of immigrants.
In today's video, Abby Phillip destroys Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. This debate gets heated fast. And what makes it so explosive is how Abby Phillip calls out the contradictions in Scott Jennings' arguments on victimhood politics, Gen Z, and the GOP's shifting identity, while Scott Jennings tries to defend the conservative narrative around personal responsibility. Abby Phillip pushes back with hard context about systemic barriers, historic inequities, and the ways modern Republican messaging contradicts itself. What you're about to see is one of those rare moments where the political talking points fall apart under real scrutiny, and Abby Phillip doesn't back down for even a second. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip shuts down Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
Tonight, is the right becoming the left? Ben Shapiro is claiming that the party that has long criticized Democrats for having a victimhood mentality is now sending that same message to Gen Z. Listen.
I think that the right is actually weirdly feminizing young men by giving them a victimology to buy into. Listen, if you're failing in life, yes, we can get the obstacles out of your way, but it's a little your fault. It's a little your fault. You should actually pick your ass up and go out and do something useful. And this notion that you as a Gen Z male are facing these obstacles that no other human has faced for all of human history, like read a book for once, seriously, go talk to your grandfather.
What do you think?
I do love listening to Ben Shapiro. Look, I think that he sees the problem he described, popping its head up on the right, and he's going to have none of it. I agree with him. Victimhood is a path to more problems. It isn't meaning identifying oneself that way as your primary focus instead of trying to solve the problems that are out there. And he said, get yourself off your butt, start working on these problems. And I agree 100%. I mean, frankly, that attitude helped make America the greatest country in the history of the world.
I guess I'm just surprised that now, this very moment, is the first time that this thought has crossed his mind, because I do think that actually the victimhood mentality is something that has helped power Trumpism. I mean, it's all been about what they are doing to us, how we are the victims, how the immigrants are taking our jobs, how other countries are taking our jobs. Everything is victimhood in Trump's world. So this is not really all that new. I'm surprised
I disagree with your assessment. Right. I mean, I think what drove a lot of President Trump's coalition is a whole bunch of people who felt like they were doing everything that they've been told to do. Get up every day, go to work, pay their taxes, take care of their families, play by the rules. And they were living under systems that were then forcing them to pay taxes and deal with other ideologies and cultural issues that were essentially harming their lives or causing them to not be able to live the life.
You're just literally describing.
So they're playing by the rules. They're playing by the rules.
You're
doing
describing a victimhood mentality.
No, I'm describing people who get up and go to work. Well, if you want to describe working class America that follows the laws and pay their taxes as victims, go ahead. But that's not how conservatives.
But I think
But you're saying that, look, everybody is doing everything right? But other people are putting something on.
Yeah, like illegal immigrants who come here and take up public resources. They're not doing things right, but the left, and you would argue that it's okay to leave them here, and the working class of this country would say, no, they broke the rules. They broke the rules, and I didn't, and yet they get more than I do.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
But Scott, not all of the problems in this country are the responsibility of immigrants.
What really jumps out in this exchange is how Abby Phillip is pointing to something that's been documented for years. Modern right-wing messaging has increasingly leaned into a narrative of grievance and cultural persecution. And this isn't speculation. Conservative strategists have openly admitted it. Think about Steve Bannon's whole playbook in 2016. feed a sense of unfairness, tell voters the system is rigged against them, and build identity through resentment rather than policy. That's not a judgment. It's literally what Bannon said at the time. And when you look at the data, Abby Phillip's point becomes even clearer. Polling from Pew and PRRI shows that Republicans today are far more likely to say they're being replaced, silenced, or targeted than any other group, even though statistically they hold most of the cultural and political power in rural America and many state governments. That's not a coincidence. It's the result of years of messaging built on exactly the kind of victimhood framing Abby is calling out. Even the economic frustrations Scott Jennings is describing, jobs leaving, wages stagnating, towns hollowing out, those are real issues, but they're not the fault of immigrants or social programs. Study after study shows they were driven by automation, outsourcing by large corporations, and decades of federal disinvestment in rural infrastructure. But instead of confronting those structural causes, right-wing leaders often redirect the anger towards scapegoats because it's easier than challenging the corporations actually responsible. And that's why Abby Phillip's framing makes sense. If you're telling people we're losing our country, they're taking everything from us, and the elites hate you, that is a victim narrative, just wrapped in patriotic language. Even Reagan's former advisors have said the GOP has gradually shifted from optimism to grievance politics. So when Abby presses Scott Jennings and Ken Cuccinelli here, she's not nitpicking. She's pointing out a pattern that political scientists have been observing for a decade.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, some are, some aren't.
Some are and some aren't.
But that's an
However,
example of something that you
however,
asked how the Trump coalition absorbs
overarching
things. It's true.
theme of Trumpism is a lot of what you're saying, that it's other countries screwing us over, it's immigrants screwing us over, and where in the Trump mentality is it that you know, I don't know, according to Ben Shapiro, that we need to pick ourselves up and do something.
But the fascinating part about
you
this,
don't have to accept it. The Trump ethos would be, we don't have to accept it, we can fight back. And what Ben is saying, I think, is the same thing. Like, don't sit on your ass and just say, well, woe is me, I'm a victim, and there's nothing I can do about it. The actual answer is, you live in the greatest country in the world. Of course there's something.
The fascinating part about this argument, and the fascinating part about watching this argument play out just in being here, is that we've been able to articulate these same arguments for a very long period of time. That you've had 300 years of slavery, that you've had 100 years of Jim Crow, that you've had redlining, you've had the remnants of it, you've had state-sanctioned violence from Emmett Till all the way forward. And as soon as somebody articulates those things, for any reason that you may be running behind in the race that we call America, then all of a sudden we're playing victim. But in you two's mind, it doesn't quite articulate. It doesn't compute the same way.
It was very notable that Scott used the word systems that are
correct.
affected.
Because
Is it wrong?
But
Is it
it's
wrong?
not wrong.
I'm just
to
saying.
expect people to enforce
But hold on, Scott.
the laws.
All I'm just saying is that when
agree
people
with
talk
you.
about systemic racism,
No, but
you
I
guys
just want.
think that you guys say that is a
but
made
my
up
only
thing.
point,
but you just describe
this is where
systems as being
this
the
is
I'm
where
describing systems where people are encouraged to break the law
this is
and
where
getting no
Scott and
punishment
I.
for doing
This is where Scott and I agree, and it frustrates the people on the left who I love and the people on the right who Scott loves, because I just want the systems to be fair. Like, I don't want the systems to pick winners and losers, but I want the systems to be fair. And I think Scott would agree with that as well.
Well, let me jump in and agree
but
on
you
one
also
one
have to
aspect of
realize
that,
that
too.
for 400 years they weren't, right? So we need to make sure that we do everything above and beyond. I can't make you dance. I just want everybody to have an opportunity to have an equal dance floor.
What Bakari Sellers and Abby Phillip are highlighting here isn't just an opinion, it's supported by decades of research, historical records, and actual economic data. When Scott Jennings tries to frame everything through the lens of immigration or individual responsibility, it completely skips over the reality that the biggest obstacles facing working-class Americans today weren't created by undocumented immigrants. They were created by policy decisions made by US lawmakers and corporations. For example, if you look at the manufacturing collapse across the Midwest, the biggest job losses came from automation and companies outsourcing jobs overseas, not immigrants taking them. Princeton and MIT have published studies showing robots eliminated far more jobs than immigration ever did. But it's politically convenient to blame the people with the least power instead of the corporations with the most. And Bakari's point about historical inequity is grounded in measurable evidence. Redlining alone, a government-sanctioned system, robbed black families of an estimated $200 billion in generational wealth. That wasn't 200 years ago. Many of the neighborhoods that were redlined in the 1930s still have higher poverty today because banks would not lend to black homeowners. The impacts didn't magically disappear. It also matters that when Scott talks about systems being unfair, he's unintentionally agreeing with Abby and Bakari because those same systemic forces have been harming marginalized groups for centuries. The only difference is, historically, the people hurt weren't at the center of political power, so their grievances were dismissed as victimhood. What Bakari is arguing for, fairness in systems, is literally the foundation of a functioning democracy: equal access, equal opportunity, and institutions that don't stack the deck. That's not playing the victim. That's asking for the race to stop being rigged from the start. And honestly, it's refreshing to watch Abby and Bakari push the conversation toward reality rather than letting it get lost in easy scapegoats.
Well, good news.
Is that-
I can't make me dance. So, but
That's why I miss you, kid. Where have you been so long, kid?
Bakari, kind of connecting your comment to Abby's is the picking winners and losers. So you don't have to look Republican versus Democrat. You can look right inside the GOP at the Chamber of Commerce wing of the GOP versus ordinary people. And the Chamber of Commerce wing has been winning for most of my lifetime until along came a guy named Donald Trump. And he's very unorthodox and he does things a very different way, but he is within the GOP, he is changing that focus. The focus has shifted much more to regular people than it ever was for most of my lifetime.
The Chamber of Commerce is at the White House every single week.
But that
He is
doesn't
totally fine with the Chamber of
Abby,
Commerce.
please.
Meta,
this isn't binary.
Google,
this isn't 0 or 1.
Apple,
Yeah, but
you
can't
name it.
call
They
a
are at
Donald
the
Trump,
White House every single week.
You cannot
They
call a
the
Donald Trump
president and
agenda
ask for
a
favors, and
Chamber
he
of
gives-
Commerce agenda.
They call him all the time and ask for carve-outs. They ask for breaks. They ask
Which is
for
what they do.
carve-outs
They're
and
just a
tariffs.
big lobbying organization.
I'm just saying, the individual companies that comprise the Chamber of Commerce, they don't have to go through the chamber anymore. They can just walk right in the front doors of the White House and get the things that they're asking for. You can't. I take your point about the populism that Trump ran on, but the governance of the Trump administration has been that if OpenAI needs something, if one of these other companies needs something, they call, and then he says, you know what, we're going to exempt you from this policy. How is that not a Chamber of Commerce mindset, as opposed to what is he doing for the average American that is actually on the receiving end of his policy, specifically tariffs? The people who are going to the grocery store and buying a box of Folgers, and they're paying a markup because of tariffs. What about those people?
And what do you think the chamber thinks of those tariffs? I think we've heard that pretty clearly.
I'm asking what do regular Americans think about those tariffs?
Americans is the key word.
Americans
well,
is the
they're
key
also
word.
alienating young men
Americans is
right
the
here
key
with
word.
these comments.
Okay,
So,
nightcaps.
well, we're
They
not.
are next, and it is, trust me, the happy edition.
What Abby is getting at becomes even clearer when you look at how political access actually works behind the scenes. Big corporations don't just influence policy, they shape it long before regular people even know what's being discussed. There's a reason studies from Princeton and Northwestern found that average citizens have near zero statistical impact on major federal policy outcomes, while business interests and lobbyists have measurable influence. That's the environment Abby is pointing to. Take corporate carve-outs, for example. During the Trump administration, over 1,500 special exemptions were granted to specific companies impacted by tariff policies. These weren't small-town hardware stores or family-owned factories. They were massive corporations like Apple, Exxon, and Tesla asking for and receiving special treatment. Meanwhile, the tariffs themselves functioned like a hidden tax on working families. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated American consumers paid almost 100% of the tariff costs, with grocery staples seeing some of the biggest jumps. That's real money coming out of regular households, not executives. And it's not just about tariffs, it's the pattern. Corporate lobbyists spent nearly $3.8 billion in 2019 alone, more than any year in US history. Ordinary Americans don't have that kind of access, and they don't get to walk right into the White House the way Abby is describing. So when Ken frames this as some kind of populist shift, the numbers simply don't bear it out. If anything, the gap between corporate influence and public influence keeps widening. When Abby pushes back, she's doing it with the reality most Americans live in: rising costs, shrinking leverage, and systems that still bend toward the people already holding the most power, not the ones trying to keep up. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.